Welcome to Seed, Soil, Water. My name is Brittany, and we are going through Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, learning how to get rid of our old broken mentality, mindset, habits, and create a new future with the power of knowledge and the help of our body pretty much, and then in conjunction with our environment. So we are already here at chapter 5, survival versus creation. Let's get into it. In the last chapter, I purposely used the example of my writing to illustrate my point about transcending the big three, which remember is time, body, and mind. Because when you write, you are creating words, whether on the physical page or in a digital document. The same creativity is operating when you paint, play a musical instrument, turn wood on a lathe, or engage in any other activity that has the effect of breaking the bonds that the big three hold over you. Why is it so hard to live in these creative moments? If we focus on an unwanted past or a dreaded future, that means that we live mostly in stress, which is in survival mode. Whether we're obsessing over our health, the survival of the body, paying our mortgage, the survival need for shelter from our external environment, or not having enough time to do what we need to do to survive, most of us are much more familiar with the addictive state of mind we'll call survival than we are with living as creators. Okay, so I might have misspoke. Yeah, it's the body, the environment, and time. And how the mind is like aware of all three of those. In my first book, I went into great detail about the difference between living in creation versus living in survival. So for a fuller explanation of this difference, you may want to read chapters 8 through 11 in Evolve Your Brain. But he's going to briefly outline the difference between the two. Think of life in survival mode by picturing an animal such as a deer contentedly grazing in the forest. Let's assume that it is in homeostasis, in perfect balance. But if it perceives some danger in the outside world, say a predator, its fight or flight nervous system gets turned on. This sympathetic nervous system is part of the automatic nervous system, which maintains the body's automatic functions such as digestion, temperature regulation, blood sugar levels, and the like, to prepare the animal to deal with the emergency it has detected. The body is chemically altered. The sympathetic nervous system automatically activates the adrenal glands to mobilize enormous amounts of energy. If the deer is chased by a pack of coyotes, it utilizes that energy to flee. If it is nimble enough to get away unharmed, then perhaps after 15 to 20 minutes, when the threat is no longer present, the animal resumes grazing, its internal balance restored. I don't know if he's going to talk about this, but deers actually like shake it off. Have you ever seen an animal do that where they like shake things off? It's a real biological advantage move to get the stress moment shaken off of you. So it works for them and it works for us too. We humans have that same system in place. When we perceive danger, our sympathetic nervous system is turned on, energy is mobilized, and so on. In much of the same way as the deer during early human history, this wonderfully adaptive response helped us confront threats from predators and other risks to our survival. Those animal qualities served us well for our evolution as a species. And also, by the way, this is why right here, right now, like in those toxic belief systems where you feel compelled to stay in a harmful relationship because of some sort of man-made system that tells you that's the right thing to do. Unless it's caring for your children and they're stressful as hell, which they are. But unless it's that, you should not be with a grown person who creates this kind of traumatic response within you all the time because they refuse to do their part to grow up and be a peaceful, contributing person in your household or society or whatever. So you are responsible for taking care of your health, and it is important that you protect your body because your body is carrying your soul around. And if you surround yourself with people that purposely and uncaringly or caringly, whatever, but let's say they're out of control of themselves and it costs you, it's up to you to protect yourself from that because Nobody else is going to do that for you. And that person must go and get their own, figure out how to get help, because so long as you're trying to do it for them, they'll never get it. Okay. Thought alone can trigger the human stress response and keep it going. Unfortunately, there are several differences between Homo sapiens and our planetary cohabitants in the animal kingdom that don't serve us well. Every time we knock the body out of chemical balance, that's called stress. The stress response is how the body innately responds when it's being knocked out of balance, and what it does to return back to equilibrium. Whether we see a lion in the Serengeti, bump into our not so friendly ex at the grocery store, or freak out in freeway traffic because we're late for a meeting, we turn on the stress response because we are reacting to our external environment. Unlike animals, we have the ability to turn on the fight or flight response by thought alone. And that thought doesn't have to be about anything in our present circumstances. We can turn on that response in anticipation of some future event. Even more disadvantageous is that we can produce the same stress response by revisiting an unhappy memory that is stitched in the fabric of our gray matter. Ow. Yowza, that hurt the subconscious. So either we anticipate stress response producing experiences, or we relocate them. Our bodies are either existing in the future or in the past. To our detriment, we turn short-term stressful situations into long-term ones. On the other hand, as far as we can tell, animals don't have the ability, or should I say disability, to turn on the stress response so frequently and so easily that they can't turn it off. That deer back to happily grazing isn't consumed with thoughts about what just happened a few minutes ago, let alone the time a coyote chased it 2 months ago. This kind of repetitive stress is harmful to us because no organism was designed with a mechanism to deal with negative effects on the body when the stress response is turned on with great frequency and for long duration. In other words, no creature can avoid the consequences of living in long-term emergency situations. And yet, how many people do you know that do? When we turn on the stress response and can't turn it off, we're headed for some type of breakdown in the body. When we turn on the stress response and can't turn it off, we're headed for some type of breakdown in the body. That's so huge to know. Let's say you keep turning on the fight or flight system due to some threatening circumstance in your life, real or imagined. As your racing heart pumps enormous amounts of blood to your extremities and your body is knocked out of homeostasis, you're becoming prepared by the nervous system to run or fight. But let's face it, you can't flee to the Bahamas, nor can you throttle your fellow employee. That would be primitive. So as a consequence, you condition your heart to race all the time, and you may be headed for high blood pressure, arrhythmias, and so on. And what's in store when you keep mobilizing all that energy for some emergency situation? If you're putting the bulk of your energy towards some issue in your external environment, there will be little left for your body's internal environment. Your immune system, which monitors your inner world, can't keep up with the lack of energy for growth and repair. Therefore, you get sick, whether it be from a cold, cancer, or rheumatoid arthritis. All are immune-mediated conditions. When you think about it, the real difference between animals and ourselves is that although we both experience stress, humans re-experienced and pre-experienced traumatic situations. What is so harmful about having our stress response triggered by pressures from the past, present, and future? When we get knocked out of chemical balance so often, eventually that out of balance state becomes the norm. As a result, we are destined to live out our genetic destiny. In most cases, that means suffering from some illness. The reason is clear. The domino effect from the cascade of hormones and other chemicals we release in response to stress can dysregulate some of our genes, and that may create disease. In other words, repeated stress pushes the genetic buttons that cause us to begin to head toward our genetic destiny. So what was once very adaptive behavior and a beneficial biochemical response, which is fight or flight, has become a highly maladaptive and harmful set of circumstances. For instance, when a lion was chasing your ancestors, the stress response was doing what it was designed to do, to protect them from their outer environment. That's adaptive. But if for days on end you fret about your promotion, over focus on your presentation to upper management, or worry about your mother being in the hospital, these situations create the same chemicals as though you were being chased by a lion. A lion. Now that's maladaptive. You're staying too long in emergency mode. Fight or flight is using up the energy your internal environment needs. Your body is stealing this vital energy from your immune, digestive, and endocrine systems, among others, and directing it to the muscles that you'd use to fight a predator or run from danger. But in your situation, that's only working against you. By the way, shout out to all the like Disney movies that scared the shit out of us and stressed us out completely and brought us through like epic life destructive heartbreaking tragedies like Bambi's mom or dad or whoever it was, both, I don't remember. Blocked it in like in Dumbo, and like no wonder everybody grew up to have anxiety because they sat there and we watched that and went through it and went through it and went through it as little children over and over and over again multiple times a day. Oh my gosh, please stop. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. It's getting me so hyped up because it makes me like I can't control everything that my kids end up seeing because sometimes they are under another care, and like the people need to understand this stuff in order to protect our children. There's plenty of real life shit that stresses us out. We don't need to like send them through imaginary shit through movies. Oh, it makes me like livid. Okay. From a psychological perspective, overproduction of stress hormones creates the human emotions of anger, fear, envy, and hatred, incites feelings of aggression, frustration, anxiety, and insecurity, and causes us to experience pain, suffering, sadness, hopelessness, and depression. Most people spend the majority of their time preoccupied with negative thoughts and feelings. Is it likely that most of us, of the things that are happening in our present circumstances, are negative? Obviously not. Negativity runs so high because we are living in anticipation of stress or re-experiencing it through a memory. So most of our thoughts and feelings are driven by those strong hormones of stress and survival. When our stress response is triggered, we focus on three things, and they are of highest importance: the body, it must be taken care of; the environment, where can I go to escape this threat; and time, how much of it do I have in order to use in order to evade this threat. Living in survival is the reason why we humans are so dominated by the big three. The stress response and the hormones that it triggers force us to focus on and obsess about the body, the environment, and time. As a result, we begin to define ourself within the confines of the physical realm. We become less spiritual, less conscious, less aware, less mindful. Put another way, we grow to be materialists, that is, habitually consumed by thoughts of things in the external environment. Our identity becomes wrapped up in our bodies. We are absorbed by the outer world because that is what those chemicals force us to pay attention to. Things we own, people we know, places we have to go, problems we face, hairstyles we dislike, our body parts, our weight, our looks in comparison to others, how much time we have or don't have. You get the picture. And we remember who we are based primarily on what we know and things we do. Living in survival causes us to focus on the 0.00001% instead of the 99.99999% of reality. Survival, living as a somebody. I'm going to pick this one up next time, so be blessed, be well, be free.